Ned Lamont, governor, of course, is now seeking to revise a controversial housing bill. Okay. He's weighing whether to call Connecticut lawmakers into a special session, summertime special, Brian, to revise the housing bill before he must either sign it or veto it. Okay. So he wants revisions before he makes a decision whether to sign or veto. General Assembly's 2025 session ended last week, but debate continues outside Hartford after a controversial housing bill that has prompted Governor Ned Lamont to consider calling lawmakers into special session for revisions before, again, he must sign or veto. This is per CT Mirror. It's on Apple News. It's kind of all over the place. Wherever you find Connecticut news, you can find something about this. The housing bill is Bill 5002, the first significant bill passed in response to Connecticut's housing shortage. Connecticut does have a real housing shortage. The number that's floated around nationally, 3 to 7 million homes short to meet supply, I think is a little bit of a fugazi number because it's really like 3 to 5 million short to meet affordable, or 3 to 7 million, whatever number you want to pinpoint. The shortage across the country is affordable housing shortage. If you put 7 million homes on the market in the places national home builders like to build, Sunbelt states where there's already high levels of inventory, and at the prices they can afford to build, you're not going to meet the pent-up demand of the buyer where the majority of them are in a certain price category. So I think the national conversation around housing shortage is a little bit overblown. It's not overblown when you look at Connecticut in particular. The 50th state out of 50 in terms of inventory, lowest level of homes available per capita. We got about 4,500 single family homes on the market, active, available to purchase for 3.65 million residents. I've given the stat on like Port Charlotte, 230,000 residents, and there are around 6,000 homes available. So the disparity between what's going on in other parts of the country and what's going on in Connecticut, it's wide, it's widening, and we do have a real housing shortage. We only bring about 2,000 new units online in Connecticut per year. Totally not enough. Connecticut's attractive for, young people, millennial buyers who don't want to pay Massachusetts or New York pricing. And if we can build more homes, Connecticut can be viable for the long term, right? If we can get out of New England way of thinking, old New England way of thinking, and kind of be on the cutting edge of inventory, we become more attractive long term than Massachusetts, New York, high taxes. I know we got them too. But there's a lot of advantages we could kind of bring together in the state of Connecticut if we think about real estate development in a forward-thinking, progressive way. Lamont says the question is: you sign it as is, fix the bill, or don't sign it and get a new bill that works. Take down the temperature. That's a quote unquote from Lamont this past Monday. He's got the leverage here with the potential veto, just kind of saying, no, go find us a new deal. These lawmakers in Hartford, they don't want to have to work too much over the summer, Brian. They'd rather go down to their beach home. A lot of them take Route 9 down to Saybrook and Clinton and Westbrook. They're not looking for, a lot of work on their plate in Hartford. They want to be on the shoreline. So Lamont says some of the complaints involved a lot of really gross misrepresentation, which I think is no help at all. Here's the thing, Brian. One piece of the bill here, this housing bill 5002, is known as Towns Take the Lead. Okay, Towns Take the Lead divides housing need among towns and assigns each town a set number of units to plan and zone for. That means every 5 years, towns would have a certain number of units they need to plan for. And some of those units will have to be for families or set aside for certain income levels. There's a huge proponent to this way of thinking. Listen, neither of us are experts on this bill. We're not in Hartford. But we're going to break down what we know about it and what some of the objections to the bill are and what Ned Lamont is pushing for before he decides to sign or veto.
All right, so yeah, we'll get into it a little bit here. It's a lengthy bill. It's 2,634 lines, and I'm not surprised that there is some pushback from a number of the local communities on the bill. I think the sentiment of the bill has some good stuff in it, some good coming from a good place as far as things that we talk about on this show a lot. We frequently say that there's a low inventory of housing available. Housing costs have gone up. It's significantly more expensive in Connecticut. And generally, the market in Connecticut could use more housing that folks can afford. We also talk about, how zoning in Connecticut, there's pros and cons to this, of course. But and one thing I think is not debated is that the zoning in Connecticut's much tighter than in other states where it's easier to build. And as a result of that, we have charming, cute towns, but it's sometimes challenging to add more housing that people can afford. So the general thought of the bill is that we need more housing and we need more affordable housing, and coming up with a formula where the state's kind of dictating to some of the towns, okay, you need to somehow find a way to create X number of affordable units. The towns have some control, so they can decide where to put them and how to do it. I did read one of the articles was saying that there is a dispute process. So if if they feel like the number of units is too high, they can go back to the state. But essentially, it's a little bit of a power struggle here. Some of the control that the town zoning departments have had, they feel like they're losing some of their control. And it seems like most of the towns that are pushing back on it are, less urban communities, more sometimes a lot of them are in Fairfield, more affluent single family housing communities. I got a couple quotes here for you. Let's see here. Let me see if I can pull it
Well,
up.
Fred Camillo, the Republican first selectman of Greenwich, he's spoken to the governor. Obviously, they're Greenwich boys. When are you going to get the invite to Greenwich now that you're boys with the governor, Brian? That's what I'm wondering.
I am
But
not a Greenwich boy.
Camillo said there is a widespread perception that the bill as written would empower developers at the expense of local zoning. So, you know, to your point, the towns want to have control over their zoning. It's one of the reasons these small towns in Connecticut don't ever get nothing done. They want to do things the way that they've always been done. Listen, I mean, developers need to be empowered or they're never going to develop in Connecticut. The cost of building, the regulations locally around building are so extreme. National home builders don't even think about Connecticut. It's not on their radar. They don't consider it, not because it doesn't drive it drives a great price point. It's because of the regulations that they're stuck with. You also, have the seasonality of the winter. It's harder to build in the winter, and that kind of stuff plays into it as well. It's easier to build in the Sun Belt. Migration patterns have obviously supported the Sun Belt more than, other areas in the country over the last decade as well. But yeah, you need to get developers to be empowered. Okay, that is part of the game here on building more units.
Yeah, so a couple more details for you. I'm reading a couple articles I found on Connecticut ctmirror.org. They have a couple pretty good articles that kind of go through some of the pros and cons. Here's a few highlights. It says towns get moratoriums under the law, showing they're making progress. They have to show that they're increasing the percentage of designated affordable housing, and they can be exempt if they can show that at least 10% of their housing stock is designated affordable. Lamont's proposal allows municipalities to establish a priority housing development zone that set a minimum density of 4 units per acre for single family housing, 6 for duplexes or townhouses, or 10 for multi-housing. So he's kind of pushing for, the towns to create zones where they're going to put this, which I think is a fair suggestion. Like, hey, we want you to build it. You get to decide where it's going to go, what it's going to look like. But you got to do something. You can't just sit on your hands and not build any affordable housing. There was a pretty interesting quote here from a representative from New London. I know we got some New London listeners here. Let me see if I can find it. Um, he said, sorry, I keep scrolling.
Well, here's the thing.
Go
I
ahead,
think
fill in for me there, Byron.
there's a lot of good thing. Here's one of the quotes. There's a lot of good things in the bill you'd like to support. I mean, I can take from kind of the spirit of this bill, let's work with towns to create an environment where they've got to increase unit production. Across the state, we got to increase from 2,000 units a year. We have to. So the spirit of that, I really think is right on the money. Okay. Now there's a lot of good stuff in there, but then there's some things I think that they've got to work out. The House, when they passed it, 84 to 67, you had 18 Democrats join all 49 Republicans in opposition. So if you're looking for where party lines sit, all 49 Republicans opposed, 18 Democrats opposed, but 84 Democrats, which is why they're calling it a Democrat bill, in the House, passed it. In the Senate, it was approved 20 to 15. There was 4 Democrats that opposed it. So not all Democrats are in favor of this. Now, I don't. Here's what I know about Connecticut without getting too far into the bill. A lot of these local towns don't make great decisions for their town. You can take Old Lyme as an example. Old Lyme's got East Lyme as a neighbor, and they've got, across the river, Old Saybrook. I know the Connecticut River separates them, but that's their neighbor to the west and East Lyme to the east. Both of those towns have done a great job around Old Lyme in bringing in commercial development. Okay. Think about East Lyme, think about Niantic, think about Old Saybrook. The commercial development for those two towns. Old Saybrook's got, the second lowest mill rate in the state.